evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, as we start a late edition of the Fallout Bar, the final one of 2023. And what a session of Paddy Power World Darts Championship action we have to talk about for
what a day in the final session
of the year.
What a day.
There's a joke there, but I can't make it because it's definitely. But as you can see, we've gone for three of us on tonight's show because it is so special. We are going to be talking, no doubt, for a while. Hello to everybody in the chat room. We'll say hello to individually. But first of all, Cam, welcome back, me and you once again. But I got to say hello to Mr. Henry Deacon at the bottom. Is this your first call out, Matt?
I think it might well be.
we've pulled in the man from the series.
Well done.
The voice of Her Majesty's Prison Portsmouth, as we affectionately know it.
I don't often get to talk about PDC darts. This is a nice little...
We don't normally let you give opinions, to be fair. It's right, we'll let someone else more important than you have a go. But
it's usually me telling them, asking them what they think. That's what it is.
But no, it's fine. This is my show. I'll do what I want. Good evening to everybody in the chat room. Jack says, insane night. Pity Gary didn't really show, but fair play, Dolan. Little real deal. Luke and Cullen, some game, 100%. Bob says, what a brilliant match between Humphries and Cullen. Match of the tournament, match of the year, match of all sorts, if you want to chuck that in. Jesus, what a night, says Graham. No Fallout Bar tonight, says Rob. Rob, the session didn't start till 7:30. B, we've had two games go the distance, including the absolute maximum distance in the very last leg. And C, Cam's version of 2 minutes is actually 10. So we're cracking on.
Oh, my.
Have you got the link? And then I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I'll be 2 minutes. As if you were ready anyway.
I literally, in fairness, I messaged you saying, who's doing the Fallout? And you went, it's me and you. I went, oh, for fuck's sake.
You told me at 7 o'clock it was you. Bob Zuni says,
at 7 o'clock I was pissed. At 12 o'clock I was asleep.
Yeah, well, less of that. Rob, what a bloody session of tungsten tossing 100%. Al Zuni says, I love darts. What a night. One of the best games I've ever seen. The tension. Can't read the last line, but it's quite amusing. Dan Zuni says,
you can read anything. I've just
Good evening, Mrs. Simpson. Good evening, Mrs. Simpson.
Good evening.
Both very well. Enjoyable night, fellas. 100% Preston. Well, we're going to start with the afternoon because, again, absolute belter. First game of the day. This feels an absolute lifetime ago because you age so much when you watch a game like we've just seen. It drains out of you. My heating is on full blast. My husband freezing as well. So, it's just all in one. I'm like, oh my God, this is magnificent. Scott Williams.
So when I asked you the other day, is he now the grown-up that can go and do things on the stage that he couldn't do before? Have you changed your opinion?
I never said he wasn't a grown-up. I just said there wasn't enough evidence to suggest that he's significantly more mature.
Have you changed your mind? You changed your mind?
We were seeing the performances. Not really, because I've seen his post-match press conferences. He's still the same. His first question, he goes, oh, yeah, brilliant. I've beaten everyone here, or I'm the only one outside the top 32 apart from Luke, but we're not allowed to talk about him after Gary's interview yesterday. So he's still the same lovable idiot.
No, but that's good. But actually on the stage, he looks a different beast these days. He looks relaxed, in charge of what he's doing, and he's a tough draw for anybody at this stage, isn't he?
Yeah, look, Damon Heta's come through a couple of absolute battles to get to where he is. He is the form man of the two. He's got all the experience, Henry. He's been deep on TV this year. He's been getting results despite possibly playing worse than he was this time last year. But I'm not sure there were many out there going, right, Scott Williams wins this one as comfortably as he does.
No, for me, I kind of had this as kind of like a pick-em game, maybe a 4-2, 4-3 either way. Look, I mean, we actually spoke to Damon, didn't we, a couple of weeks before the World Championship began down in Portsmouth. And even though he was having the best year of his life, yes, TV results were turning, but maybe not turning to the same kind of tune that we've seen on maybe a European tour, maybe on a Pro Tour stage. I mean, just listening to your conversation about Scott Williams, I think one thing that he's definitely found at this World Championship is a stage craft. Now, we've all known that he's a confident character. He's got this brashness about it, but there's evidence to back it up now. He's kind of worked that crowd, and he actually, if you look at him and you watch him on stage, there's a bit more of an imposing figure about him. And look, Michael goes in as a heavy favourite against him in the quarterfinals, but one thing Scott can do is whip a crowd up. He can put that fourth dart in his favour, and if he if he gets off to a strong start in that particular quarterfinal, then who's to say that he can't then use that momentum? Yes, the magical M word.
He's used the M word already. He's only been on for 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes.
Rod Stud's already imploding on Twitter enough.
He's already used the M word
for him.
Well, it doesn't matter because it's all overhyped anyway.
I get what you're saying, though, in that...
He's right, though. He is right.
He can go with a crowd, but actually, Cam, the other advantage is if you'd offered Scott Williams to be in this position at the start of the tournament, you'd have absolutely snapped your hand off for it.
He would have
whilst he is a
Dolan
freshman,
never mind.
all the belief in the world that he can go on and do more damage and potentially lift that trophy, he's on an absolute free roll from here, given his ranking, given his position, and given his opposition in that quarterfinal. Absolutely nothing is expected of Scott Williams from here on out.
No, like you say, it is a free roll. But I think for Scott, I don't think he sees it as a free roll. I think he genuinely believes that this is where he's meant to be. This is not a free roll. This is his opportunity to go and win something big, which he really fancies that he can do. So, like you say, the only pressure on him is what he puts on himself at this point, because he genuinely believes he's meant to be there. This is his stage, and this is where he's meant to be. And he's playing like it so far. Can he go and do it against MVG? It's tough. It's really tough. But MVG isn't as we've discussed already, the fear factor isn't there anymore. He's
yes and no, because I think we saw the complete opposite to that yesterday. Stephen Bunting is arguably the most informed man in the world, but he's beat Van Gerwen once in 12 attempts previously. Walked in that room yesterday, and after he lost the first set, decided MVG was on it, and he didn't want it.
Yeah, I get that, but I would say for me, MVG is the Man United of darts, isn't he? Like, he used to be unstoppable, but now nobody's scared when they roll up against
the Forest. The Forest, by the way. I know it's a dart show, but what a brilliant result for the
The key to that particular fixture will be the fact, if you actually delve down deeply into Scott's stats, they're all mid-90s, something like that. So he's going to have to be, on average, probably a visit better every leg against Michael if he stands a chance. And it may be the case, it might be those mid-range finishes. You maybe have to take out 1-2-1s. You may have to take out 1-2-7s, sometimes on throw just to stay in legs. That's going to be the key for Scott Williams there is, look, he's done enough. And I'll tell you one thing about him, he's been very gritty. And maybe that was a question mark that we labelled at Scott Williams. We knew this is this eccentric, this flair player that can do these maverick things. Maybe sometimes we've questioned that ability to really dig in when it comes clutch, but he's answered those questions and then some. The difference is what he'll know against Michael. His opportunities are going to come few and far between. It's about those. Well, we know he's good at those tub plus checkers. If anything, whips the crowd up for them. But it's going to be those mid-range finishes that's going to be the real key for him in that particular match.
Yeah, that's it. Like, Michael will miss doubles at times because we know that he just will. That's what he does. But when he does, like you say, you are generally a dart behind anyway. So if he misses doubles, if you can take out those ton pluses, like you say, that is where you can hurt him and you can really rattle him and put him under pressure. And that's what he's going to have to do if he's going to go and win this game.
And the thing is, he's had a few legs, hasn't he, in this tournament where he's been able to get away with 18 darters or 20 darters, something.
You can't do that against
Exactly. You're going to have to leave something after 9 or 12, pretty much every single leg to keep yourself in the match. You can't have in the set play format, maybe you can have a little bit of wiggle room because it's a little bit longer.
You can't do that. It's how frequently you can't do that. If you're doing that every leg, you're going to get done in. If you're doing that 3 legs out of 5, you're going to get done in. If you're doing that once a set, it might catch up with you eventually, but you can have a bad leg and it can still not affect the overall score.
Oh, and this is where set play comes into it, especially when it gets to this longer format in a respect of you can have, you can see it tonight to a certain example. I know we'll talk about the Humphries game a little bit later on, but you can have that offset or you can have a couple of offsets, but then go back, regroup, and the game can then be back level. Whereas if that's a match play game, you could find yourself maybe say 5-1 behind and it's a long way back where it's only a couple of sets. It's manageable. You're still in the game.
It is indeed. Right, we'll talk about the next round at the end of the show when we come to predict the outcomes of that one. For now, we're going to hear from Scott Williams in his post-match press conference, and then we'll say hello to
He's got it nailed now. He's absolutely got it nailed now. He didn't even have to think about it. It just rolled off the tongue there.
I'm a professional.
Are you looking forward to that?
Michael,
Oh, no, I have heard of him. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. He's a completely different gravy to everyone else in the competition. I'll just go up, then I go in, then I go in. If he wins, I win. It's going to give the crowd. It's about the crowd and then the people watching. That's massively important for the game. And as long as they're happy, we're happy. We carry on and living. I was advised to come off social media just X. I'm still on Instagram and stuff like that. But obviously, what I said in the last interview on stage was stupid. I genuinely was stupid. The guys from Germany knows I love Germany and love everything. And my deepest apologies to all of them if anyone took offence. I've had a lot of messages from people that haven't taken offence, but that's gone now, and I'm looking forward to Monday.
Gary Anderson vibes there. He just wants to play darts.
Just very grown up from Scott. I think he's realised he's made a mistake there. As he said, he's still another socials. He made a brilliant comment on one where somebody's like, "Wow, fair play to Chris Dobie doing that." In the game against Ross Smith, completely sober, and Scott Williams up underneath. Yeah, according to Matt Porter, we all are. So what's that?
Yeah, that was excellent.
I thought that was pretty amusing. Hello to some people in the chat room though. Tiz is in. He says, "Loving the show again, lads. Wishing all America's happiest of New Year's." Yeah, I think you're a happy man after some of the predictions you've had in our group chat. Chris Mason's in. Hope you're doing well, Mason. Darts on the radio has been an absolute success once again. I'm looking forward to that on Monday as I'll be driving down to Portsmouth, so I'm going to miss some of the action. We do have the confirmed lineup for that day, by the way. I'll give that to you now before I lose it.
You would say it should be a simple pick.
Looks like this. The opening game of the day is Chris Dobie, Rob Cross. Oof. Followed by Luke Littler against Brendan Dolan. Luke taking prime slot over a former world champion and a major winner this year and a Premier League player. Yeah. Evening session, Michael Van Gogh against Scott Williams and then Luke Humphries against Dave Chisnall.
I'm surprised Luke's in the afternoon, I've got to be honest.
The afternoon looks brilliant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they put Luke in the afternoon because I just would have thought that with the media attention that he's got, that's probably the quarterfinal that every single eye is going to be on. But then at the same time, think about scheduling for other things. I know there's Premier League football on later on in the evening. Maybe they didn't want to clash with that. But yeah, I'm surprised that they put him in the afternoon session when you consider the vast waves of media. I mean, not many darts players gets their matches beamed on BBC News at 10, do they?
Well,
no.
BBC Sport had a live blog for Luke's game tonight.
Yeah, he is the.
I've not seen that in a long, long time. They occasionally do that for the final at the bottom. It was the headline article.
It's a top, Fallon. Yeah. He is Fallon, isn't he, at the moment? Like Fallon 4 years ago is Luke now.
Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. Mason
it could be the
how
one
good darts right now. Darts is absolutely brilliant right now. Even into the O'Shea clan as well. John's in, who superbly.
What's the night the other night? John
made us look. Thank you very much for joining.
Made us look all
Anthony is in
when he did it the other night.
PDC also. Just what a day. On to the second match of the day. And the story of this one, boys, lies in the treble-less visits for me. Dave Chisnall was very, very good against Daryl Gurney, but there was just way too many visits without a big treble for Daryl Gurney. Found himself too far behind too often, and Dave Chisnall is into the quarterfinals.
Go on, Henry. Run on this one. This is you.
Well, ironically, this was the one I was kind of keeping tabs on because Clink Clink, another job commentary alert on this particular match. But look, this has kind of been brimming for. This has kind of been brimming, hasn't it, for Dave Chisnall for a little while now. We've seen the Superb 4. He's been on the European tour. Maybe not backed it up as much as we would have expected on the big TV stage. But look, into World Championship quarterfinal, he could be the type of player that could go completely under the radar. Of that 8, maybe people don't talk up as much. But if you actually run through the numbers and the way he's played in 2023, perhaps shouldn't have. Look, as you say, there was missed doubles in there, and that's kind of been a little bit of a thing for the tournament as far as Chisnall is concerned. But as we know, and we saw it a few years ago against Van Gogh in a quarterfinal, any one night he can kick fire, and if that happens on the right night, then who's to say Dave Chisnall cannot go on and lift this particular title?
Yeah, that performance against Van Gogh was one of the best we've seen on that Alexander Palace stage.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that he couldn't go on and do more with it. Obviously, he's still hunting for that first major title, Cam. He's got better as the round's gone. 90 average against Dave Chisnall, 3-1 victory in that. 4-1 victory over Gabriel Clemens, averaging 95. He actually finished with a lower average than his opponent in that one. And then tonight, 98, we'll call it 99 average for Chizzy against Daryl Gurney, who admittedly didn't put up as much resistance as Gurney has in the last couple of rounds. Relied on a couple of big finishes to make a bit more of a contest of it. A 130 and a 151, his 2 checkouts to win sets for Gurney. But Chisnall is getting better for a man who, you look at his interview so far, has been open that his TV form hasn't been that good this year. He's done all right in Euro Tours. He's done all right on the floor. He has been one of the top players in terms of stats if you go and look at all that data. But he was very aware of his TV form coming into this tournament. And given the fact he still hasn't won one, do we think that's affected his performances in the earlier rounds? And he's building into the tournament quite nicely.
Yeah, he really is. Like you say, he's not only is he aware of his tournament form, he's also very aware of the fact that he's still not won a big one. And he wants to win a big one. And he's not going to stop until he does it. We talked about the other day that it feels like it's starting to weigh heavy on him a little bit. But you look at his performances in this tournament, he's not weighing heavy on it. He's getting better and better as he goes, and he's actually dealing with it really well. And I thought he was fantastic today, and I thought that he just looked really, really solid and not worried whatsoever, and not overthinking it, and just playing his game out there.
Let me just label another argument, though, to that, because people say he hasn't won a major yet. But actually, swing it the other way round, because the World Championship, compared to, well, the other majors paling to complete and upper insignificance in comparison to this one. And actually, what you could say is there's a load of other players that are probably in the same boat as Dave Chisnall, and the fact that they've never won a World Championship. People don't think about what other people do in other majors throughout the course of the year. People haven't talked about the MVG winning the Premier League this year. There was a vague conversation about Aspinall winning the World Match Play. People don't tend to talk about those other majors apart from the World Championship when it's World Championship season. And so a lot of people have still got that same feeling. And look, Dave's going to be one of them. But if anything, I feel like the set play format works in Chisnall's favour, and the fact that he can have those short, sharp bursts, he can have that 3-leg blitz, get into the next set, and then if something doesn't happen, look, we've seen it a couple of times as well, where he's come back from 2-0 down in sets, and he can go on a bit of a rampage. So I actually think this format will play. It plays into Chisnall's hands as far as I'm concerned. He hasn't made 2 World Grand Prix finals, say, for instance, without that playing into his hands. So.
Yeah, for a man that we don't associate with for his doubling prowess either, he's normally a big scorer. Right, let's hear it from Chizzy in his post-match press conference. Hear what the Yellow Peril had to say.
Yeah, like I said, it was frustrating. And, like I said, I felt overconfident. I felt I was going to easy wipe the floor of him, but he came back well. He had some good scores, some good finishing, but I think I had too much with my scoring, because I think I was always like 3 darts ahead of him, and that's what won the game, really. Oh, they were cheering like hell. I won't hear the last of it, but I don't let my kids play darts really, because it's one's 2, one's 12.
Okay.
But I don't. To be fair, my wife's a good dart player, but I don't play her because I always batter her and she don't like it.
It's a good job he's already on his Christmas presents, isn't it? Because she'd be doing him in right now. On to the third and final game of the afternoon session. And if the previous game was about treble-less visits, this one was about darts at a double. Jonny Clayton. I said this last night. This match was all about Jonny Clayton on double 16, and it just deserted him in the early parts. Found himself digging deeper and deeper against Rob Cross, and vaulted, runs out a 4-0 Victor Henry. He was superb in this one.
He absolutely was, and I mentioned before the tournament that Rob Cross had real semi-final potential when it came to these World Championships. It's really coming up to the boilies now, that fantastic run to the final of the Grand Slam, and he just keeps motoring on. And look, he had that game against Thibaut Dracol where, let's be honest, Dracol could have been 2 sets up in that one early on in the piece. Cross came through that, and it's kind of been the punch on the nose that he's needed, because ever since, it's not looked like anybody's been capable of touching him ever since. I mean, Jonny Clayton, it just felt like a case this afternoon of no matter how hard he tried, the worse things kind of got for him. It was one of those afternoons that any pro has. Unfortunately for him, it was on the World Championship stage. But for Rob Cross, he just keeps motoring through the rounds. And look, put it this way, people are talking about the openness of this World Championship field. And look, with everything that's gone on, this is the type of tournament where Rob, as well, being in the favourable side of the draw, as people are calling it right now, could be the type to look. Going under the radar, I'm not saying the next world champion can do, but he can just work his way through a field into a potential final, because you could argue that he's one of the favourites to do that in that side of the draw.
Yeah, Cam, he's gone about his business in this tournament quite nicely, as Henry said, but from that treacle game where he could have found himself in a deep hole, Rob Cross he's taken that warning sign. That might be in the past, you said if you don't get Michael van Gerwen early, you don't get him at all. Is that what we're seeing with Rob Cross right now?
I think so, yeah. It's really hard to go up against him now, and I think you saw it with Jonny today. Like, Johnny's not had his best year, and he's not played all that great, but I think you saw it today up against Rob, that he was trying so hard, because you have to try and beat Rob Cross now. You have to literally be on your very best. He's trying so hard, and that's why he struggles so much on the outer ring, because he's trying too hard, and he's struggling, and Rob just went up there and just went about his business and just kept doing it, and just relentless. Like, it's a different game that he's playing right now to most other people. Like, in the way that he just looks comfortable up there, and he looks like, this is my stage and I'm here for it. And if you're going to beat me, you're going to have to play your very, very best to do it.
And they're games, aren't they, as well? You look at the matches he played against De Graaf, and then today against Clayton, he's playing at a level that's going to be competitive against anyone. Even if someone throws a 105 average in there, look, he's going to be on the back foot, but he's going to carve himself out enough opportunities because he's scoring heavy enough. Look, they may not be bona fide opportunities, but they're opportunities, again, at mid-range finishes if someone does go a bit berserk. And look, we've seen what his combination finishing is like. It's actually been a little bit reminiscent of 2018 in the last couple of games, the way that he's been taking out those 140 type shots. So look, if he plays to that level, someone drops off it, then look, you'd see if Chris Dobie drops a couple of points in level, you could see him maybe go through into the semi-finals. But even if Dobie plays at the levels that he has done all tournament long, and look, for me, Chris Dobie's been as impressive as anybody in my book at this World Championship, he can still create opportunities. And we know the way that he takes out those big time plus finishes, he's going to create opportunities, take opportunities, and he will provide a real test.
Yeah, we'll come to predictions, but yeah, if there's anyone in this tournament still that you are going to back to hit a double when they need to, I don't think there's anyone I'd pick other than Rob Cross right now.
The double 18 is Ala 18.
Well, the signature 140 was out in the very first leg to Burnley from Jonny, which sort of turned the tide for the entire match. And you're like,
as well.
That was one. If Jonny takes that leg comfortably like he should, I think we see a completely different game. But the fact he knew he had to be on it and raise his level from what he's seen so far, Cross goes and pings a 140. That was the sucker punch so early. I genuinely don't think Jonny recovered from that. And you said 2018. The 140 is the first thing you think of when you see that, because Cross was the only one really doing that route on TV at that time. And to nail it in the first leg pretty much summed up the performance from Rob Cross. 98 average in the end. Scoring wise, they've actually pretty level stats wise. 18 tons each, 14 to 13 140s and 4 and 2 in the maximum column, but 44% on the outer ring for Rob Cross. Just 4 from 14 for Jonny Clayton. Let's hear then from the former world champion Rob Cross in his post-match press conference.
I believe, look, I'm not one year to really look forward. I think if it was offered to me, I'd love it. I've said that already. Massive change from probably last year, but at the same time, I think, look, whoever the PDC pick, they've usually got it right. Chris Dobie's a prime example. So if I was in next year, I'd completely embrace it. I love it, and I think it'd help me being back on TV for a duration every week, because that's what it does. When it's not going bad, it actually feeds you, if you can get a little bit of success. But that's down to the PDC, and whatever they choose is final, and I'll honour that. But I'm really looking forward to it, because I sort of play 3 games and not going to be nasty to my opponents, because Johnny's great. Jeffrey really did put a fight up, and Trico, he just done great to get here. But at the same time, to have someone what's going to play against me now, all these things, what I'm saying, I'm going to have to back it up, and I think that's important.
As we know, Gob, you don't like a conversation about the travelling circus. I
don't know how he's kept a straight face there, where he said, "Oh, I probably didn't want to be in it last year." You were in it until you sabotaged your own hopes of being in it, Rob, by constantly slagging it off and saying you don't want to be there.
Changed his tune a little bit, that boy, hasn't he?
I'll tell you what, though. Imagine being the selectors having to pick 8 this year.
Oh, it's tough.
Because I think I think before the World Championship, I thought probably an easy 8 to pick. And maybe there was just one spot. I think a few played their way out. I think very big names played their way out as well, I think, because of an early exit. I mean, I've got 5 down here who I can 100% definitively say will be in the lineup when it's announced on January the 1st.
Michael,
I think there's 3.
So we'll do this when we do our predictions. Let's talk about the evening session, because actually predicting our final 2 from the 8 might well then play into the conversation of who takes what, because I'm still pretty adamant there's 7 and there's a couple of players competing for the final 1. So we'll do that when we get to the prediction part as we move into the evening session. And Brendan Dolan is at it again.
Get the chopper out.
I'm a huge Gary Anderson fan, so celebrating his loss seems very, very weird to do. But to take out Gerwyn Price, followed by Gary Anderson in a World Championship in the manner that Brendan Dolan has, deserves an awful lot of plaudits, because look, there's plenty going on in this tournament. Chris Dobie was magnificent last night. Michael van Gerwen was magnificent. We've just spoken about Rob Cross potentially going winning this second. We're going to talk about a 16-year-old who could potentially do the absolute unthinkable in a minute. Luke Humphries and Joe Cullen have just played one of the contenders for games of the year, games of the season, games of this tournament, of all of those things. And yet Brendan Dolan is calmly going about his business, wiping out contender after contender in a fashion where he does not look phased at all.
And the thing is, in any other World Championship, this would be the story of the tournament. He's knocked out Gerwyn Price. He's knocked out Gary Anderson. And let's be fair, the first round game against Mickey Mansell, he could have should have gone in that particular match. But look, any other tournament, if you didn't have Luke Littler around, then you'd be talking about this as being the story of the tournament. Brendan Dolan, what he's done. And look, we know the ability that he's got. And I think one of the biggest credits, and I was listening a lot to John Part at the end of tonight's television broadcast, and the fact that when players get into a slump like Brendan did, and you drop down the rankings, as we know, it could be a very, very hard task, and for a lot of people an impossible task to get back. It took him a little while, but boy, this year is he proven that he is back. And look, he's a player who's touched the top 10 in the world. He's a player who's made it to the final of the World Grand Prix. Again, I'm going to mention it, set play tournament, which probably plays into his hands. And maybe always seen the best of him here at Alexandra Palace, but boy, is he making up for it this year in droves. And I think the big thing with, if you actually watched Brendan, and I didn't see the whole game against Gerwyn Price, I'll be honest, but just watching him tonight was, yes, he got out to a strong start and Gary was a little bit under it the first couple of sets, but when Gary came back, it could have been so easy for him to have folded amongst the surge that the Flying Scotsman gave. But he stuck with it, including the set where Gary averaged 108 in there as well, held his nerve when it mattered, and he just went with whatever was being in front of him. He just hit back. It may not have been an absolute maxophon, but the amount of 2 treble visits that he found when it mattered the most, just to keep him in legs, just to keep Gary Anderson honest, that was very, very impressive. And when it came to the finishing, it didn't feel like there was a big miss in there at any point. Maybe towards the end when it's match starts, but you can forgive anybody that. But when it came to the crunch, you didn't expect Brendan Dolan to wilt at all. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can give to a player.
Absolutely that. Yeah, 100% agree. I think he just looked, there's not many people that I would, like God said, celebrate a win against Gary Anderson for, because we love ourselves from Gary, but...
Well, especially when the tournament just open, and Gary, this is the first time Gary's failed, he's only failed to reach the quarterfinals or beyond of the World Championship once in the last 8 years before today. Yeah,
exactly. It's a huge win for Brendan. Like you say, Henry was spot on. If you didn't have Luke Littler in this tournament, this would be the big story of the tournament. He's taken out 2 people that are expected to go very, very deep in this tournament and go and win it. And he got through a tough game in his first game and he dodged a bullet. How many times does I've risk of going too far here, how many times does the eventual winner dodge a bullet very early on?
That is a big leap. I need to go back to something Henry said about it being set play and it suiting Brendan Dolan. I sort of have to call you out on that a bit, because if it was leg play, he'd be out. He's won 2 games where he's won less legs than his opponents.
Doesn't
Of course,
matter.
it suits him.
Doesn't
He'd
matter.
be
It's
long
set
gone.
play.
He'd have
It's
been
set
gone
play.
against Mickey Mansell. But 100%, Brendan Dolan has played magnificently. To do what he's done back-to-back in this tournament has been superb. His reward is a matchup with the teenage sensation Luke Little. Now, if you've just beaten...
Is there anyone left in the draw that's going to worry less about playing Luke Little than Brendan Dolan?
No, but at the same time, if you've just beaten Gerwin Price and Gary Anderson back-to-back in the World Championships in the manner that you have, there aren't many games you could walk into as a strong second favourite to win the next one.
Exactly.
Michael Van Gerwen, potentially, an on-song Michael Smith or Peter Wright a couple of years ago, a Phil Taylor of on, or a 16-year-old that's on his debut, because that's what's about to happen.
He's not going to get rattled, though, is he? And he's just going to stroll up there and play.
For it. It's mental.
He doesn't get it. Like we know, they all want to be the second favourite. They all want to be the underdog. None of them want to be the favourite. So it's absolutely ideal for Brendan to roll up there and just play his game. And if Luke comes out there and plays unbelievably well, then he'll beat him. If he drops off even a little bit, Brendan Dolan will be there to pick the pieces up.
And the other thing as well is, look, at what point do we go into the World Championships? And I say the really, really boring thing is, when does experience come into play when it comes to a Luke Little game at the World Championships? Does it get to the point of the quarterfinals? Because, look, he's going to have to once again deal with a hell of a lot of... I mean, to be honest, if we think the first couple of games are bad enough, I think the next couple of days, I think we're going to see an even bigger... thing with the media. And look, I think Luke's very, very good at. I think he's dealt with this incredibly well. I mean, he's 16 years of age, and to deal with what he's had to deal with the last few weeks, I feel like you've got to commend him for that. But I think Brendan can just do his own thing. Whilst there's going to be an absolute. Look, we know what's happening. The Luke Little whirlwind has come into town. But Brendan will also look at this and think, look, if you actually break this game down, yes, Luke's playing some amazing darts, but he's got an opportunity to make a World Championship semi-final, and he's playing an unseeded player, non-tour card holder as of now, in the quarterfinals of a World Championship. So if you spin it from the other equation, if he could beat Gerwin Price, he could beat Gary Anderson, then he'll say to himself, well, what qualms have I got against Luke Little? Look, Luke is playing some superb stuff, and I'm going to wax his praises to the hilt in the next couple of minutes. But look, Brendan will look at this as a bona fide opportunity to make a world semi-final, and why shouldn't he? And look, opportunity to make a world final, let's be fair, that half of the draw.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, like you say. I mean, bear in mind, like I say, if you'd said to him at the start of the week, you're going to play in the quarterfinals, you'll be at the quarterfinals, and in that quarterfinal, you're going to play a 16-year-old kid who's never been on the stage before, he would have ripped your hand off for that. And he's absolutely still feeling the same now as he goes back there. I'm telling you that. He's not going to be worried about playing Luke one little bit.
Potentially. Not publicly. Let's see what he had to say anyway at the end of his game.
I hold Gary in such high esteem, and even when I walk into a place and I know I'm playing Gary, even for the bull up there tonight, I felt so anxious because it was Gary Anderson, and there's not many people that I have to play that does that to me. So yeah, Gary's I just think so much of Gary, and I think how brilliant he is and how naturally he is, and it's great to get a win against him. And I just know it wasn't Gary Anderson out there for a lot of that game. I was just trying to tell myself that you're still in this game, you have the darts, keep it going, and sure, next thing I lose the darts. And so I had to just keep telling myself again, you've made a major mistake here. It could cost you the match, but at least fight. Just fight to the bitter end. Just don't lie down and let them walk all over you. So I did fight, and I actually started to play decent darts in that sixth set.
Very humble from Brendan Dolan, who does progress to the quarterfinals of the Paddy Power World Darts Championship for the second time, I believe it is. Someone who's there for the very first time, because it is his debut, is 16-year-old Luke Littler. All the hype, all the attention was on this game before anything got going, and rightly so, purely because of what the young man has done so far in this tournament, adding to the fact that Luke was born a couple of weeks after the last time Raymond van
Stop
Barneveld
it.
World Darts Championship at the Circus Tavern. The fact there's videos surfacing online of Luke practicing the Barney celebration at 3 years old. To go up there and produce a performance like he has, 105 average over 5 sets of darts, 9 180s. He's finished 14 from 28 on the outer ring, including 1 check out of a ton, which was tops, by the way. The maturity, the calmness, the entire persona up on stage right now, he is the real deal.
And the other thing is, you mentioned those numbers, you mentioned those stats, and look, it's an impressive numbers as it is, but sometimes you can go about that when you've got nothing being thrown back at you. But Barneveld played probably one of his best stage matches over a long course in a very, very long time tonight. And to be honest, if it was given near on anybody else in the field, he probably would have won that game this evening. And so it was not just the fact of what he did, it was how he did it and the manner that he did what he did. He kept his calm, kept his composure. And look, at 3-1 at that advert break, that game could have so easily changed. That could have gone back in Barney's favour. If he brings, he could have easily brought it back to 3-2, but Luke kind of staved off that mini little comeback, that mini little charge Barney had. But look, it's the whole package, isn't it? It's the power scoring, it's a doubling, but also the game management was absolutely superb. Right? If he could have so easily, again, for the match, the 170, he could have so easily have G'd the crowd up, Barney not on a finish, but no, I'm going to go set up. Okay, he messed up the setup, but the game management and the maturity, and look, we've covered a lot of Luke by working on the Super Series, and I've had the absolute pleasure of commentating on some of his matches over the last year or so, and presenting him with a couple of trophies in the meantime. And I think the one thing that I've always grasped, and I've been getting the opinions of Paul Nicholson and Chris Mason, Glenn Dolan and the likes on him, and they all say the same thing, is actually you take out the age of Luke, because sometimes it's very easy to get kidded by the age, but actually judging by his actions on the board, which is way above and way in excess of his years. He plays like a established pro, even though he's at the stage of his life he can't even get a car.
Yeah, exactly.
He's sponsored by a car dealership, by the way.
But, yes,
ironically,
you beat me to it there.
A cheeky little Skoda patch in the top corner.
Sponsored by Skoda, because they are the most used taxi brand that uses to get to places, I assume, because he can't actually drive a car himself, which is brilliant.
If he doesn't have German doner kebab on the phone overnight, then something's gone very wrong.
Yeah, they are missing a trick if they're not. Well, they should be in there already. They should already be
Lemon
up there.
J2R.
Yeah.
Henry, you've touched on it there. The calmness, the persona, everything. Look, he's been winning senior titles for the last couple of years in the WDF. He made his debut at the WDF World Championships a couple of years ago. Couldn't play in the youth tournaments there. He's been an animal in the JDC for the last couple of years. That England side that he's been a part of with other talents that perhaps have fallen foul of some of the media things, such as Leighton Bennett, Henry Coach has been in there, Thomas Banks, Archie Self. These are quality young dart players that we're seeing elsewhere, by the way. Some of those boys are making UK Open appearances at 16 as well. And Luke is smashing the lot of them and has been for a number of years. To come in and achieve what he's doing, I mean, I tweeted this earlier, or we had a couple of weeks ago, the conversations directly with Luke when he's been on the Live Lounge Live, or we've had him as a guest to try and get him some sort of media practice before he drops into all of this, has been, when you get your tour card and when you go onto the Pro Tour, do you think you can go and win titles? He's 3 games away from lifting the biggest one of all.
Yeah, it's incredible what he's doing right now. And Henry touched on this. Barney didn't fold today. I thought Luke might win this game, but I thought it might be that Barney would drop off and struggle because of the pressure, and it would get to him a little bit. That didn't happen. He just got outplayed by Luke Littler. He is that good right now, and he is playing that sort of game where it just looks unflappable. It looks like you could do it. You could go and hit him in the face, and he wouldn't take a step back, and he'd just carry on. He'd just pick his darts up again and throw them again.
I commented on Barney's interview yesterday where he said, look, when I play him tomorrow, there was a couple of people that have been suggesting that perhaps his opponents have wilted a little bit in the key moments, Matt Campbell being one of those. Excuse me. But Barney's post-match press conference yesterday, he said, look, I won't miss doubles against Luke. He really hasn't.
He didn't. He's 45% on the outer ring.
99 and he's 45% on the outer ring. There isn't a lot more Barney could have done in that situation. There's only so much rolling back of the years the man's got left in him. And to produce a performance like that and still not lay a glove on the kid
Not even
ridiculous.
close.
And I saw comments flying around on social media afterwards going, "Oh, he's still not been pressured. We need to see what happens." What more pressure can you apply? That's a 5-visit average.
If somebody averages
and half his bubbles
100
being
and
hit.
45% out of ring, they are going to win most matches on this stage.
Yeah.
I'll get back to Luke in a second, but also just spin it the other way when you look at Raymond. Look, second year back on tour, and I think it's been a very positive year. He's got himself back into the major fold, and look, he's ended it with a run in the last 16 of the World Championship. I'll be honest, I don't know where that propels him up provisionally in the rankings, but it will probably put him somewhere in and around the mid-20s. So you actually look at next year with a couple of runs on the television. It wouldn't be a surprise if Raymond van Barneveld goes into next year's World Championship as a top 16 seed. If he can qualify himself for European tours, if he can get himself on a couple of runs on that European tour, if he can get himself into the TV majors and maybe have a run in one of those TV majors. Look, I know he's got to defend the Grand Slam semi-final next year, so that's something that he's going to have to look at. But, you know, this has been a very positive upward curve year for Barneveld, and who's to say he can't be in the top 16 again come next year. But going back to Luke in the respect of, I mean, again, we've covered a lot of him, and I've had the pleasure of commentating on him a lot this year. And the one thing that I always found was as the games and the magnitude of matches got bigger, so did his level of performance. You mentioned that WDF World Championship. He only went out of that competition because Richard Veenstra hit the highest average in the history of that event. He hit a 10 darter to beat him. You know, at the Super Series, he probably had the toughest week outside of a Champions Week ever. He had Andy Bartons in the final. Bartons had beaten him 3 times that week. He absolutely had his number. But then in the final, averaged 117. He wins 4-0. So when the occasions get bigger, it's almost like this fuse gets lit in the fact that he knows the magnitude of something, and it brings out this absolute beast inside of him that is capable of hitting absolutely anything under a lampshade. I tweeted a few weeks ago making comparisons to him and Ronnie O'Sullivan. I think Luke Littler could be to darts, but Ronnie O'Sullivan has been to snooker for 30 years. You know, 17-year-old prodigy O'Sullivan was. Littler, 16 years of age. I think he's got the appeal, the attention, the style of play. He gets the social media side of it. I think he could be someone that could well be in the future one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name in the sport. He could be the type that sends it into, look, it's a mainstream sport now more than ever before, but I get the feeling that the likes of him, the likes of Fanichot, the likes of Bo Grease, etc., could send it into another stratosphere as far as where these players get viewed and where the eyeballs focus on this sport.
I'll be honest with you, the way he's playing right now, I think he could hit a 147 in under 5 minutes as well. I think he's that good. He can do whatever he wants, this kid.
Will he be the first to hit a 147, a hole-in-one, and a 9 dart? I mean, he's already got multiple 9 darts.
According to sources, Sean Murphy's done that, hasn't he?
There is already a Sean Murphy. Who apparently in the local, in Sale, down the road from where I used to work.
We need to touch on rankings quickly because you're talking about Barney. He's provisionally world number 29 in the tour card race. Those still remain in the tournament. Michael Van Gerwen will be world number 1 unless Luke Humphries makes the final of the tournament. At that point, Van Gerwen will have to go final or win.
Yeah, anyway, because Humphries and Van Gerwen will face
6. He'd need to go to the final to jump up to world number 4. And a win would put him in exactly the same position. Dave Chisnall up to world number 10 right now. Chris Dobie into the top 16. He's currently 15th in the world. Brendan Dolan's win puts him up to 28th after the end of the tournament. Scott Williams is on the cusp of the top 16. He's 35th, £155,000 to his name. And Luke Littler is the one we need to talk about before we hear from him in this post-match press conference. He is 72nd in the world, £52,500 to his name. If he wins his next game, Luke jumps up to world number 50, at which point he no longer gets a 2-year tour card for the development tour. He gets a 1-year tour card in which he's pretty much guaranteed to not drop below the value, which is currently 80 grand, by the way, to keep your tour card for the following year. So he's effectively got a 2-year with the amount of money he earned in that way. Where he starts on £100,000, he's already in the Grand Slam by virtue of being the World Youth Champion, by the way, and he's on an absolute charge right now. Brendan could have a lot to answer for the rest of the world right now if he doesn't stop him and make him start again on 0.
So what happens then if Luke does break in the 64? What happens to that tour card? Does it go back
tour card, and that second one goes to the Dev Tour.
It goes to the next one on Dev Tour, yeah.
Or Nathan Rafferty gets a fresh new 2-year via the Dev Tour.
Which, to be honest, is probably much better than him. It'd be so much easier for him.
School,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be a shame
Nathan
for us.
Rafferty's praying for it right now.
And I feel like he'd be the type of player. I think give it another go second time round. I feel like he'll be better for the experience. I think maybe a little bit raw first time. And look, we saw the natural ability that he had. You know, obviously made a World Youth final and played well when we had the live league down in Southampton. But look, sometimes when you move on that tour, it's difficult when you go from winning things all the time to not winning things all the time. So I think there's a couple of years.
That benefited last time this happened when Borland hit the 9 against Brooks.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm convinced it was Rafferty that was in that little triangle.
So in 2 years' time, when Bo Greaves wins the World Championships, and Nathan Rafferty's third in the development tour then?
Or maybe
he'll get another 2 years. He'll get another 2 years, and he'll just keep getting 2 years again and again.
Unless Borland and Rafferty were stable mates and he needed Brooks to win to keep his tour. I can't remember which way around it was. Someone in the chat room will know. Yeah. Let's hear from the young man in his post-match press conference. Here is Luke Littler.
I think I am now. I've seen the draw. Chris Dobie got the same manager. It'd be good if me and him could get over the line, so one of us can get in the final for our sponsor. Which unbelievable. 13 years ago, I was doing a celebration, throwing on my little board, and now I've just beaten him on the greatest stage of them all.
You said there you're daring to dream. Does it give you goosebumps, the thought of becoming the world champion?
It always gives me goosebumps. I've won 3 World Youth titles, and this is the biggest one of them all, and I'm only 3 wins away now.
Only 3 wins away. Mental. What a ridiculous statement. But everybody in this position is only 3 wins away now after they've all progressed, and that includes the pre-tournament favourite, cool hands Luke Humphries, who came through, as we've said many times already, a contender for match of the year, one of the best games we have ever seen on the Alexandra Palace stage, requiring the sudden death leg in the final set. This went all the way in my mind. If Luke Humphries was a cat, he'd be very close to the end because he's using up an awful lot of his 9 lives, Henry.
Most certainly, and you got to feel for Joe Cullen again, because it's not the first time he's been involved in an absolute thriller in the last 16 of the World Championship. Your mind goes back to that epic game behind closed doors against Michael van Gerwen, the 1-6-1 and all the rest of it. So first of all, hard lies go to him, but Luke Humphries, just when you're in a vein of form, when you're winning darts matches, sometimes you just find ways to win, even when you don't know how it's humanely possible. You know, he was 2-0 down, and Cullen looked like he was in a position to then just sweep home quite comfortably. He comes back, then Cullen charges again, then Humphries comes back, then misses 8 darts to win the match, and then the last leg, I mean, I don't know how you unpack it. That was just, I was sat on a sofa watching it, and I was absolutely fixated. That was, look, we're very quick to give opinions and very quick to say, oh, best game this, best game that. But look, that is up there in terms of drama, quality, standard as an absolute all-timer of a match.
Yeah, it was.
We go any further in the game. There are times when I think we have to acknowledge some things like this. I think the commentary on it was absolutely top draw, by the way. Dan Dawson and Jumper have absolutely nailed the call of a game of that significance with that much drama. They have nailed every single word. They haven't overdone it. They haven't underdone it. They've let the pictures tell the words. They've got involved when they have to. Honestly, the fact that it's taken this long for Dan Dawson to get his shot over the last 18 months or so, wasn't even involved in the last Sky tournament. No, ITV tournament, sorry. They didn't use him in Minehead. Ridiculous. The man...
He is top tier.
Right?
So good.
He has just got it. And I hope both broadcasters in the UK are sitting up realising, yeah, actually, he's got to be on absolutely everything. Yeah. Because the way that he can switch up a pace, the knowledge the man has is ridiculous. And
we've said it for years when he's been doing it on PDC TV, that his next step had to be to go and doing the big ones. He's the only one out there that you really look at and go, he is the one that is the next step up and the one that needs to do it. And finally, it seems like they're realising, the broadcasters, and we're getting more of Dan Dawson now.
Well, he's the gold standard.
At the same time, I feel like he's bringing the best out of everybody else as well. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but you look at some of the pairings, you look at some of the names. Some of that lineup is getting a little bit old. We've heard them for a long, long time. There's certainly people within the industry that have told us that some of them are getting that little bit lazier and not focusing on Pro Tours and Euro Tours to the depth or the extent that Dan Dawson lives and breathes darts the way that he does. There's people on the sidelines like Chris Murphy that have done 3 days of radio coverage for this tournament. How is that possible? But people like
I'm stuck here.
But people like Dan, the ones that show actually keep battering away for your chance, because the more you know and the more that you can then get that across to the viewer is so important for the viewing experience, I think. So I think we just had to acknowledge that an excellent game was also matched by an excellent piece of work by the two in that box, especially Daryl. Dawson.
And John's one of those actually as well, that when if you get him saying the right things at the right time, he just has the perfect tonic to a match. You know, it's not too much, but he can just add that extra little bit. You know, let Dan do what Dan needed to do, and then he came with his bit. That's how commentary should work. You got to have that yin and that yang. You got to complement each other, and they did exactly that.
Correct. Jamie, I hope that's in reference to Gary Anderson's interview, because we're talking about everybody equally right now, including Luke Humphries, who, look, first of all, we need, again, another first of all, Joe Cullen. There is only so many times I, as a darts fan, can sit and watch that man experience heartbreak in the game of the year. It happened against Gary Anderson at the match play a couple of years ago, and it's happened again today. It is devastating to watch.
He's always in the best game of the year, and every single time he comes out on the wrong end of it, it's a special talent to be able to be that good and keep losing the big ones. But you got to feel for him, haven't you? Like, he's such a nice guy. I really enjoyed it the other day when he was getting filmed as he won the other day, and so he went, "Can I swear?" He went, "No." He went,
"Oh,
gets in."
I love that. I mean, the fact that PDC have put that on social media. If I see Joe Cullen's name on the DRA fines list for swearing after the own governing body have done that to him, there will be hell to pay. By the way, DRA, I hope you are watching this.
There'll be a good Christmas party.
It's a bit late for that. Buy some fireworks for New Year's tomorrow.
New Year's Eve, correct.
The last few days.
Yeah, they got to pay for New Year's Eve. Joe and Scotty are bankrolling them, I think. But yeah, it's. I mean, he's not done anything wrong, has he, in this game, and he's still lost. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay him, that he loses these thrillers, and it's never down to him folding. It's always that he elevates everyone around him and makes them better than they are, almost, because you have to play it that well to beat Joe Cullen, because he is that good. And yeah, he just keeps coming out on the wrong side of it. But this is huge for Luke, isn't it? Like, to get through a game like this and move on. Is it his time? Is it his time?
It's not advisable to keep finding yourself 2 sets down in the World Championship to start the match. I'll be honest. There are more comfortable ways to go and lift a World Championship trophy. But after that, come back against Petrescu to then produce this again against Cullen, who's missed multiple match starts not earlier in that set as well. Maybe it is just written on the wall. He seems to be, before this, not coping with the pressure of being number one or the talk of him being favourite, especially from the other players. It seemed that he was carrying that weight up on stage of him. He wasn't freely playing as much as we know he are. And he's mentioned the fact that people think he's boring a couple of times as well. So I think he's very worried about his image whilst he's in the middle of the biggest tournament of the world, which can't be a good thing. But actually, today he's produced the darts that we know he's capable of, albeit still not got over that 100 average mark, by the way. He's never produced one. This is his 4th trip to the quarterfinals. 99.23 average for him. 45 tons, 27 140s. They've thrown 12 maximums each. I'm running out of things to say about this game, but it was just bloody good.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just fun.
Yeah. Like, between them, they had something like, is it 171 ton plus visits in 7 sets of darts? Like, it was ridiculous how good they both were. And like I say, Luke didn't get over the 100 average, but he keeps winning games. And to be honest, my biggest concern for him at the moment is the fact that he's trying to be more interesting. Forget it. I like that he's boring. No one cares that he's boring because his darts do the talking. He doesn't need to be a character. He doesn't need to be Peter Wright. He doesn't need to do anything silly. Everyone will still watch him and still pay to watch him because of how bloody good he is. So forget trying to make yourself a character. Just play darts. Gary Anderson.
As Chris Mason said, is your name on pot, lad?
Is your name on pot, lad? Aye.
Potentially. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a Luke clip as yet. Phil Barrs will be working away on that one at Alexandra Palace if he's still allowed in the building at this hour. But it will be available in full on our YouTube channel tomorrow whenever you guys all wake up, especially you guys in the States. You might get that by the end of the evening, wherever you are, our friends from across the pond. But everyone else, when you wake up tomorrow, and as will all of the interviews from tonight's action. We now move on to looking at predicting how the quarterfinals of the Paddy Power World Darts Championship are going to play out. As I said earlier, that lineup is as follows. Chris Dobie takes on Rob Cross to open the action on January 1st. Luke Little.
Bring on New Year's Day.
Dolan. Michael Van Gerwen will take on Scott Williams, and Luke Humphries will play Dave Chisnall. An old university friend of mine. We've been chatting on Twitter this evening. He's really got into the darts over the last couple of years. And I've never been so excited to wake up hungover on New Year's Day. I thought he summed that up perfectly. Absolutely superb lineup. No one really knows what's going to happen from here. Michael Van Gerwen, the man with the experience and probably the big favourite because of that. Luke Humphries, the pre-tournament favourite. You've got Luke Little at 16 years old in his debut. Right up there in the odds right now, and a few others to go. Right, let's have a look at predicting our winners in the quarterfinals. Then we'll do our two finalists who we think will win that, and then we'll wrap up the show a little bit, and then we're going to have a 5-10 minute add-on at the back end of the show where you guys can listen to our where we think the Premier League is right now, because it's the last chance you're going to hear from us up until that moment. The World Championship Finals on Wednesday next week. Phil and I are both unavailable Thursday and Friday because we're working on the Motor Super Series. And then Q School starts on Monday, and we believe the Premier League announcement will be within that time frame. So
I'm stuck with you again next week. Oh, God.
Yes. Lucky what a lineup, by the way, down on the South Coast. But I digress. We need to start doing our predictions, starting with Chris Dobie against Rob Cross. Best of 9 sets, gentlemen. 1st to 5. Chat room, get involved as well. You guys let us know if anything catches my eye. I'll read them out. I'll try not to read all of them. We might be here a long, long time. We've already been talking an hour. Cam, I'm coming to you first.
Oh, for God's sake, why did you always come to me first?
There's normally just 2 of us, so it's either I just come to you.
So that's a good point. Fair point, well made. I'm really struggling with what I've done the entire tournament, which is say that Chris Dobie can't play that well again. Yet he keeps doing it. And he keeps doing it. He's done it to Michael Smith now. I think he does it again to Rob Cross. And I think, as much as I don't think he can play that well again, I think he will. And he wins this one 5-2.
Henry.
If you base it on the year, it's too tight to call. They got the 6th and 7th best averages on tour over the course of a 12-month rolling period. That's how tight this game is. As I mentioned earlier, Chris Dobie, in terms of scoring power, in terms of the overall stats, has the edge on Rob Cross. However, what Rob does have at the other side is not too far behind, and his finishing has been clinical. I think it could be as key as the bullseye in the practice room possibly being a big factor in this. I'm going to go Dobie, but I'm going to go Dobie 5-4. I think this has got 9 sets over it. And I know I predicted Cross to make the semi-finals, but if you go on the basis of form, I'd go with Dobie. But look, one thing I will say is Cross is going to have to take out those 140 opportunities, those mid-range finishes because of the scoring power that Dobie possesses. However, if he does that, he's got absolutely every chance. This has got potential to go all the way.
Come on, Henry, get off the fence, man. You gave your prediction and then went backwards and forwards so often. You must have splinters on your backside, lad.
Spoken like a true commentator.
I have been quite big on Rob Cross this year, by the way. I thought he's been building up pretty nicely. I've had his name ticked off for that travelling circus for a number of months.
Not that you like to talk about it, obviously.
Shut up, drink your water. And he's built into this tournament really, really nicely. The focus today was absolutely brilliant to take out Jonny Clayton. As he said in his press conference, it's can he go and back it up now against somebody who's going to come at him? And I think the issue for Rob is that I just don't see Dobie relenting. There's been 14 ton-plus averages in this tournament so far. Dobie's been responsible for 3 of them, and 2 of them have been thrown back at him.
Yeah.
It's literally everything but the kitchen sink so far, and he's come out the other side of it. And I just don't see it relenting. I don't see a drop-off at the minute. If that first start is there, the 180 hitting has been magnificent from Dobie. Double 16 at the end of his finger when he needs it. I think I'm going to have to go Dobie this one. I'm going to say 5-3.
Yeah. And so we've all gone Dobie there, which guarantees one thing. Rob Cross is in the semi-final.
Look, it's not as straightforward as us 3 going, right, that's it, it's happening. This is pretty much a coin toss of a match. It's just whatever we fancy in this moment.
I think this is the tightest quarter-final.
Going Cross as well.
Yeah, this is the closest one of the lot, I think. It's the one that could go either way. And as much as I've gone 5-2, but I think it's a 5-2 where every set goes the distance in that. And just Dobie makes the right moves at the right time, but it could very easily go the other way.
All I'm saying is whoever's on comms, I hope they have enough pages on their notepad because I think they might be there for a while.
Yeah. Not that long because Dobie's rapid anyway, so...
He's right a lot. Bless him, he's never done it before. On to the second game of the afternoon, and despite his previous 2 rounds of action, Brendan Dolan eliminating Gerwin Price and Gary Anderson. I'm just trying to get the odds up now. I'm not sure if they've been prepared yet. I suspect Luke Littler starts heavy favourite in this one, Henry. Do you agree?
Sorry, he is the 5-1 on favourite for this game.
No.
5-1 on.
No.
You can get 7-2 on Brendan Dolan winning this match, which is
that is absolutely
give
ridiculous.
Me all of that value.
that is absolutely ridiculous. I honestly look. Do I think Luke's got? Do I think Luke goes in favour? Yes, but he's not 1 to 5. I think if we're looking at that, then I think we're looking at. For a better perspective, I think we're looking at over under sets and how you think the game's going to pan out because you don't touch the match result in that one. Look, for me, I think Luke goes into it as favourite, rightly so. But like I say, Brendan, he's got nothing to lose. He's beaten 2 of the form horses this year, 2 of the favourites to win this World Championship. Why can't he go and make it a third? However, I just think Luke is on this absolute crest of a wave right now. It feels like he's in this sort of awe and this bubble that only the real best that ever pick up a dart are in. And the fact that you think that when they set foot on a stage, they cannot lose. And at the minute, it feels like Luke Littler is starting to head into that territory a little bit. Look, I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what a lot of people expect. I expect Brendan Dolan to pick up sets in this one, but I think Luke Littler gets over the line. I'm going to go 5-3 in this one.
Yeah. If you want a bit of value on Luke Littler and you fancy the bet on it, you can get 9-2 on with tournament sponsors Paddy Power. So, it's still not value. 9-2 on is not value by any stretch. But basically what has happened is they know this is probably going to be the biggest betting semi-final of the lot because there's a lot of casual fans that will be watching Luke Littler and want to bet on him, and they do not want to lose a lot of money on Luke Littler winning this, which is why he's a heavy favourite.
Well, Dolan was 4-1 pre-match to beat Gary Anderson.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I'm taking him to win again. Get that chopper out. Brendan Dolan does not worry about. He does not worry about playing 16-year-old kids. As good as Luke Littler is, and he has been incredible in this tournament so far, And Barney didn't wilt, but he still beat him. I think this is the one step too far. And he'll play well again. He'll be really good. But he's going to lose 5-4 in a decider to Brendan Dolan because Brendan will just outlast him.
What do you think the afternoon session, the fact he's going to be playing that for the first time, how do you think that could change things? Because he's been the centre of attention. He's been the prime time bidding every single time that he's played. He's got to play an afternoon session for the first time. And if he does have a lot of press, that's going to be first thing in the morning. And it could be small things like that could make a difference in that particular match.
Yeah, and 3 less J2Os as well before he plays. Like, the energy levels might be sapping a little bit.
I think
also, he needs a message. He needs a
Which
message
is why
from
I'm
Gary
backing
Neville
for-
again now.
I think he wins 5-1.
Oh,
Wow.
The kid's special, and if he plays like he did today, or I said earlier, Chris Dobie has 3 of the 14 ton plus averages, right? But his highest is 5th, 103.09. Luke Littler has 2 of the top 3, 106 against Christian Gist, and then 105 against Raymond van Barneveld.
And both of them, again, and I want to give a lot of credit and credence to Christian Kiss because, again, he played well in that game. And look, we didn't know what kind of form Christian was going to be in. You know, we had the shoulder issue. Was it 68 at the Players' Championship Finals? We feared the absolute worst for him in that one. But that goes back to prove the point that I was talking about earlier on this evening is when Luke Littler is pushed, he manages to find this level, this extra gear from somewhere. When, look, we can talk about players, you know, all-time greats like Taylor, Van Gerwen, Van Barneveld in their prime, doing things like that. And we wax lyrical about them. This is a kid who's probably nowhere near his peak yet. That's the scary thing. He may have his peak still to come, and he's still doing this.
I just think he's special. I just think he's going to get out of the blocks absolutely flying. And when he gets on a march, he's incredibly difficult to stop. The distance of the game, the fact that he hasn't gone deep in the tour in a match since it's gone up to best of 7 sets might be an issue. If this is 9 sets long, then does he have the staying power? Has he played a competitive match over that distance? I'm not sure. Definitely not in front of the TV cameras up on a World Championship stage. But also, he's in reasonable condition, isn't he? Like, he's 16 years old. He's not feeling the effects of a 30-year career in darts. Like, I just think he's very, very good. I'm not sure he goes on to win the tournament. We'll get onto that bit shortly, but I think he beats Brendan Dolan.
If we're going to really pick holes, if we're going to really beat, and I really am picking out holes here. I'm trying to cover every single basis here. But the one thing we don't know is how he's going to react to being behind in a match because we haven't seen him in that particular scenario so far in this competition, in this tournament. If Brendan Dolan gets out to a quick start like he has done the last couple of games and he goes into a 2-0 lead, we don't know how Luke is going to react under that pressure. That could be something that could be a key talking point if that matters to be the case. But I think
it's a big if that he even goes behind. That's how well he's played in this tournament, and that's where we're going to end that one. On to the evening session, and if you thought the odds on Luke were short, Michael Van Gerwen is 1-7 on to defeat Scott Williams, who finds himself at 9-2. That's pretty big for the man who has already won 3 PDC World Darts Championship titles, who is now the favourite once again to lift a 4th. Scott Williams has been excellent this tournament, a breath of fresh air. The way that he goes about on stage, his showmanship has been excellent, but I think this might be where the run comes to an end, and I'm going to say Van Gerwen does him 5-2.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I think the handicap bet on Scott isn't a bad one, to be fair. I assume you can get plus 2.5 on him. And I think that's probably where it lies. I think it's 5-3. So I think if you can back him on the handicap and get plus 2.5, just trying to have a quick look, plus 3.5 at 8-13 with tournament sponsors Paddy Power. That's really good value because he's going to win sets. He's going to play well. He's not going to fold, but he is going to get beat because Michael Van Gerwen is too good.
See, I think this could be a 5-1 job. I really, really do. I think Scott's going to have moments, but you compare the numbers. We mentioned it a little bit earlier on Williams is struggling around that mid-90s range. He's going to have to put 4 or 5 points on his average to be competitive with Michael. And we're talking about that over a best-of-9 set match. And look, we saw against Stephen Bunting, even one of the 4 players right now, he completely cast aside. He put to bed. He kind of put his hand on the tiller very, very early on, and he didn't let go. And that's to the world number 18, who's been playing like a top 10 player. For Scott, look, he's had a fantastic run to get to where he's got to, and it sets him up brilliantly going into next year. But I feel like it's one game too far. I just think that the level that Van Gerwen's playing at in comparison to the level that he's playing at, I think this could be quite comprehensive. I think if you're going to look at anything in terms of value on the markets, I think Williams will have his moments, maybe with a ton plus checkouts, and maybe having a look at the ton plus checkouts market. That might be the one I'd recommend to you. But I've got to be honest, you break everything down, and I think it's a convincing win for Van Gerwen. I'm going to go 5-1.
There's 2 things to weigh up for me. One is that at this moment, I think Scott Williams on an absolute free roll now. His position in the world rankings is pretty solid. He's approaching the top 32. That will come later in the year if he takes this form with him and gets the chance to play more. He had that gripe earlier in the week, versus the fact that Van Gerwen has played 11 sets and dropped 12 legs. There's a chance he might not drop another set. He's 11 from 11 so far. He is just playing that well. But as I said, I'm going to go 5-2 in this one. I think Scotty pinches a couple. Not that I don't. I think Van Gerwen will switch off a little bit at times. Format's a bit longer than what he played Bunting over. You've got to go that bit deeper to stay at that level. You can have an offset, find yourself there, and then have to motivate himself to get going again. I expect him to come out early. I expect him to be leading. I expect him to switch off a little bit. Scotty to fight back into the game, and then VG to go, no, I'm not having this. Game over.
But also, by the same token, obviously it's been very rarely this happens, but I actually played it in dual order. So Van Gerwen will also think, right, if I could put him to bed early, if I can sweep him aside, get off the stage in an hour, hour and a half, and then the other game's going to be taking place straight after, he's going to be hoping that is an absolute slugfest. And it gets to that stage of the point where it's about stamina. It's about those sorts of things. It's interesting. You say these players are only 3 games away, but they've not even got to the halfway total of sets required, even the unseeded players, to winning the World Championship yet.
Yeah, there's still a very long way to go, like you say. And the last game.
I've got to call 2 people out in the chat first. 2 of them have said Scotty wins. One of them is his stablemate and good friend, John O'Shea. So I'll allow that one. The other one is Mr. Dan Simpson, both of which have said he wins 5-4. On to the final game, and the pre-tournament favourite, who is no longer favourite, in Luke Humphries, takes on
Which is also mad. How can you be the pre-tournament favourite, still be in it, and now not be favourite? And not even not favourite, he's 3rd favourite now, isn't he?
No, he is second. He's joint 2nd favourite. So Van Gerwen 6-4, Luke Humphries 7-2, Luke Littler 7-2, Chris Dobie 7-1, Rob Cross 8-1, and Dave Chisnall 18-1.
And there's a reason they're 18-1.
Scott Williams and Brendan Dolan in an 8-man field are both still 50-1.
Yeah, I am lumping on Brendan Dolan right now with the £17.44 that I have in my Paddy Power account. That's going all on Brendan Dolan.
Interestingly enough, right, you actually look at Chris Dobie. Even a couple of days ago, just before he knocked out Michael Smith, he was still 14-1. The bookies, despite everything he's doing, they've not got that 100% trust in him. So if you're backing Dobie, do it right now, because those odds will shorten.
They've been very reactive to everybody but Chris Dobie, who in the last year or so has found himself in.
He has been the best player.
Played very well in the Premier League and won the Masters.
You could also argue, right, he's got even though he won the Masters earlier this year, he'd have a better case this year to get into the Premier League than he did last year, even with the Masters win.
Yeah, definitely.
Part of me thinks there's a big part of Rob that didn't want to win the Masters. He didn't want the conversation.
Brendan Dolan. Here we go.
Get it on each way, mate.
No. We're gambling responsibly. We're going all in on the big one.
If you are having a bet, please do so responsibly. BeGambleAware.org. Make sure you check out Paddy Power, the tournament sponsors. If you are getting involved, must be 18 plus, of course. Score predictions then, boys, for this final game.
it's comfortable for me. I don't think it goes that close. I think Luke wins 5-1.
Wow. Henry?
I think Chisnall's going to have moments, and I think there's going to be times where he's really going to ask questions of Luke Humphries. I think the other thing as well we've got to mention is the fact that Dave Chisnall has seemingly had Luke Humphries' number when it's come to the European Tour this year, and I wonder whether that could possibly come into play at particular points in that game tomorrow night. Well, Monday night, sorry. But I think Luke gets through. I think he scathes through. And I think it might just be a couple of 3-2 set victories that gets him over the line. I'm going to go 5-3. I think Chisnall will 0.5 puff, but I think Luke will just have enough to get over the line.
The one problem with Cam's prediction is if Luke wins 5-1, how is he going to recover from 2-0 down?
That's a good point. Good, fair point, well made.
Because of that, I'm going to say Luke wins 5-3.
Since when did we appoint Diane Abbott?
Good from you. Also,
Excellent.
Good from John, by the way, who dropped on the show the other night to work with Mr. Lee Boys. Every single game I predicted, I got wrong.
I've just replied to him.
One of us. I
just replied to him in the chat saying, "Welcome to the club." Actually, to be fair, give you credit here, which I don't do very often, and you definitely don't deserve it, but I'm going to give it you anyway. You've been excellent on predictions this tournament.
First couple of days in round 1 and 2, I was on fire.
Yeah, a broken clock and all that.
Nailed it. I don't know about...
Even a side salad can do well every now and then.
Correct.
We write down last night's for, I don't know. I definitely went Heta. I think I went Gurney. I think I then went Cross, but not by that margin. I definitely had Gary. I had Luke. Did I have Luke 4? I think I might have nailed Luke 4-1, by the way.
I tell you what, I reckon if you'd... Well, we did this for the first couple of days.
If I put £1 on every result, I'd still be
I
up.
actually worked out it for the first couple of days, and you were well up at that point. I genuinely think that if we'd all followed your correct score predictions and put £1 on every one, you would have more money now than you started with.
Coming to TikTok in 2024. No, I'm joking. Right. From your 4 winners, gents, I need you to pick me 2 finalists and a winner.
Who are my 4 winners again?
Yes, on brand. Absolutely on brand from Henry, though, because we can never remember either, and I don't know who I picked either.
Hold on, I'm going to write them down. Hold on.
I don't have any jobs going. I cannot work with idiots.
I have to work for you next week, mate, so I don't know what you're moaning about.
Right.
Yeah, but I can mute you in my ears. I don't have to listen to you.
Especially in this new...
I've not seen that. You can't say anything yet because that's not common knowledge.
Yeah, I realised. I shut up very quickly.
Yeah. So Dobie, Dolan, Van Gerwen, Humphries.
So I've got Dobie v Littler and the same for the other semi.
Not just to go off blind hope and prayers. But as we all just seen, I've just put money on Brendan Dolan to win the pot. So, Brendan Dolan plays Luke Humphries in the final.
Man.
Yeah, Brendan Dolan plays Luke Humphries in the final, and Brendan Dolan wins the pot.
And he still doesn't get picked for the Premier League.
What do you mean? How can you not have the chopper in the Premier League? I pick him now.
That's why you're not part of the PDC.
Right, so Dobie Littler, so be my first semi-final, and you weigh up the numbers, and there's absolutely nothing to separate them. I think at this point, I think Chris Dobie will be in such a vein. Look, Littler's going to be on his crest of the wave. I know that, but I just get the feeling that Dobie may see his eyes on the jackpot a little bit. He's been the player of the tournament. He's already got experience of winning the Masters this year, and I feel like maybe at this point he may just have that glint in the eye. So I think it ends at the semi-finals for Luke against Chris Dobie, and I think he plays Michael in the final. I just think you look at the way both Michael and Luke have gone about the tournament so far. Luke has had to work with everything. I mean, even in the 3-0 game against Lee Evans first off, Evans had opportunities. Riccardo Pietrezco should have dealt with him, should have been gone, should have been out of the tournament, but got through it. Tonight against Cullen, my word. But Van Gerwen against Stephen Bunting played like a man with the air of a world champion. playing on the air of the man around that palace. Play with that swagger as if he's the big dog again. And I just wonder against Luke Humphries, who's looking to become the up-and-coming player, maybe don't have experience over that type of match. I just think Van Gerwen's experience gets through it. I think Dobie plays Van Gerwen in the final, and I think Michael Van Gerwen wins a 4th World Championship title.
Yeah, what Henry said. Basically, Van Gerwen beats Dobie in the final 7-3.
He's even got a score. He's on bold, though. He's even thrown a score out.
Well, I do. I think Luke stepped too far over that distance against Dobie, a man who can maintain that over 100 average. I don't think he's going to get faulted by it. They're stable mates, so I think that will diffuse it a little bit as well. They would have practiced and played together before. I think Van Gerwen has enough for Luke. He will be out for revenge, especially over that distance. He can afford to have that bad set, but I don't think you're going to keep him down for too long. And in doing so, I think Van Gerwen beats Luke Humphries, and then he beats Chris Dobie in the final 7-3. Right,
can I ask you a theoretical question?
Yes.
If Luke Littler gets to the final of the World Darts Championship, do you prize for a free-to-air sublet deal? Channel 4, probably the most likely.
BBC Sport were live text showing his game earlier.
Only issue of a sublet deal
they
is
won't,
the adverts.
They won't pay for it, though.
Sublet deal would have to be, because they'd have to sublet it from Sky, so there'd be adverts, and that'd be an issue
Yeah.
with BBC.
And
Channel
the BBC
4
wouldn't pay for
and
it anyway.
Sky have worked together quite a lot on things like Emma Raducanu on Formula 1. I'm just saying, it's a big enough story for that to have that kind of effect.
I think it happens. At
he's in the final,
At the very least, it goes out on Sky Sports Mix, which is free to air for everybody anyway.
I think if he gets to the final, it'll be the most viewed World Championship final of all time.
By a street, by a long way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right, that does wrap up this part of the show. Thank you very much to everybody for watching and for listening back. If you are, to everybody in the chat room, as always, you guys have been superb. I'm going to say a few more thank yous in a minute. Then we're going to play an ad break, which is the time for everybody else to turn off. If you don't want to listen to us talk about the Premier League at 1:30 in the morning, or if you're listening back, that's the time to wrap up. But we're going to have a 10 to 15 minute discussion on who we think's in, who might join them, and how the rest of the tournament might play out, affecting that, probably surrounding a 16-year-old in that conversation as well. So a big thank you to Paddy Power for all their support, to Phil Bath for being at the World Darts Championship, getting all those post-match press conference interviews. They're available in full on our YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube. Make sure you've liked this stream and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more content from us, including our world famous Q School streams that are coming up in a couple of weeks' time. We've been Online Darts. This has been the Fallout Bar main part of the show. We'll be back on the other side of this one for our Premier League discussion. Right then, folks, welcome back to this extended part of the Fallout Bar, where we are going to discuss the travelling circus that is the Premier League Darts 16.
Just what everyone needs, more of us.
Nights. Well, you can go if you want. We'll invite some grown-ups on. 17 weeks of action coming your way in the early part of 2024, as per usual. 8 players will be involved in the tournament once again, as the format remains as a mini tournament on each night. Points awarded to the players depending on how many games they win per night, including 5 points for a win and a 10 grand win bonus. Or that was last year. I'm not sure if those details have been confirmed yet. A new sponsor is set to be on the way. That'll be announced in good time also. But the only thing we do know, aside from that, is there will be 8 players in that Premier League. Now, myself, Phil, Lee, and a couple of others within the team have firmly believe that there are 7 players pretty much nailed on. I'll go through that list in a moment and explain why, and then we can talk about any gaps, any differences you may see in that so far. Henry, you mentioned earlier there are 5 absolutely nailed on. But as it stands, where's my list gone? In fact, I can do it from rankings. As it stands, we believe the Premier League 7 includes Michael Van Gerwen, Michael Smith, Luke Humphries, Nathan Aspinall, Gerwin Price, Rob Cross, and Peter Wright. Now, there's a couple of questions within that. Michael Smith's not in the best form, but he remains in the top 4. As it stands, the top 4 in a while will be Van Gerwen, Smith, Humphries, and Aspinall. So they are guaranteed to be in, I believe. The rest of them, Price, not about to leave them out unless he doesn't want to be in there. Rob Cross, 2 World Series wins this year, 2 major finals, including one that he talked himself out of winning last year, so he didn't have to be in last year's tournament. And run the floor. Now he's in the quarterfinals once again, looking like the old Rob Cross once more. And Peter Wright. Now, perhaps he is the controversial inclusion within that, but there are a couple of reasons that perhaps go beyond darts for that, right? First of all, Gary Anderson lost tonight. Right, bear that in mind when I tell you the next couple of things. The other thing, Peter Wright lifted the European Championships just a couple of weeks ago. He is still an awfully big name. He's recognisable by the casual darts fans, which the Premier League feels. And there remains 2 nights on the calendar in Scotland.
Yeah.
And when you've got a player in the top 10 that is of that nationality, you pretty much have to include them. Now, the only reason that I wouldn't include Peter Wright is if Gary Anderson was fit, fighting, ready to go and said I wanted it, and Peter Wright didn't. Before he won the European Championships, and even after it, to be honest, to a certain extent, I was calling for Wright to take a break from the Premier League. It's not been a happy hunting ground for him at all. In 10 appearances, he's been relegated a couple of times. I think he's made the finals night twice, including winning one of those. So what an achievement that is, to be fair. But it's not been a happy hunting ground for Peter Wright at all. And I would not be against him saying, actually, I don't want to play this year. Whether or not the fact he receives an allowance from his partner to play darts might sway that, and she'll go, no, you're going, is a completely different matter. Now, Gary Anderson,
200 quid.
Including an interview I did with him in Newbury at the Unicorn launch a couple of months ago, that he's 100% does not want to play in it. He's had his time. He's happy doing what he's doing. He doesn't want to be included. I believe he's got a holiday booked in the middle of the tournament as well. And obviously he has lost today. Now, players that have been in contention for that 8th and final spot over the year, or over the last couple of years, Jonny Clayton, Dave Chisnall, Danny Noppert, Dirk van Dijvenbode, Dimitri van den Berg, Chris Dobie, James Wade was on a bit of a charge, but then lost first round of the World Championship tournament. There's been plenty of names chucked out, but I also think there are plenty of names that have played their way out of contention. Before the dart was thrown at this tournament, Danny Noppert would have been favourite for that 8th spot for me. He's been in
I just don't think.
He's been in the top 10 for the last couple of years. He's getting better and better on TV, and he's earned that chance, right? It goes along that.
Bloody dull. He's so bloody dull, and nobody wants to watch him.
Right? But in terms of his level of performance and world ranking, he will have earned it, and there's only so long they can ignore that for, right?
I think
at that
last
point,
year he had a better chance.
How many other players had struggled, i.e., Jonny Clayton's had a drop-off this year because of his personal situation. Dirk van Dijvenbode's got the injury. Danny Noppert would have gone favourite because of those factors and his positioning. Losing early in the World Championships certainly will not have helped with that.
I still think Dobie would have been ahead of him, regardless.
Not until this run, right? Because obviously he had that Masters, which sort of counts towards last year's Premier League. We're in that weird situation right now in that we're going back to the Premier League starting before the Masters, so the winner of the Masters can't be a backdoor entry to the Premier League at the absolute last minute. Look, people in the chat, if you don't want to be here for a Premier League discussion, you don't have to be.
I mean, I said there was 5 definite, so I'll put Peter Wright on my list. So look, Price, Van Gerwen, Smith, Humphries, Aspinall, Peter Wright for me. There's 6 nailed on, absolutely nailed on. So I've got a list, not even debatable. Can't debate it. Then I've got a list of.
So you don't have Rob Cross?
So now I've then got a list of 5 players that are in green pens. and it's 2 from the 5. For me, Cross would have before the World Championship would have been given a spot, but I still felt that if he had an early exit, it could have been flimsy. So I had I've got 5 players currently in green pen: Rob Cross, Chris Dobie, Jonny Clayton. I would have had Stephen Bunting before he lost to Van Gerwen yesterday as a potential contender. And look, because of what's happening in this tournament, there's going to be an asterisk over the name of Luke Littler. If I was to pick the 8 today, I'd be going for Rob Cross and I'd be going for Chris Dobie. I think that's a very good 8. You've got a mix of exciting plays. You've got hometown favourites. The only thing you're going to miss from that is the fact that it is a pretty much UK-based affair. That's the only thing you'll say about that lineup. But I'm not being funny. You look at the rest of the lineup. Nobody else has really, outside of them, warranted a position in the Premier League. I mean, I understand your argument about Danny Noppert. I think last year, for me, he should have been in last year. So I spoke about this at the time. I think this year, yes, he's played some good stuff, but I'm not sure whether he's done enough consistently on the big TV stages to warrant that selection. To be honest, Joe Cullen could have actually half put himself back into that equation a little bit if he beat Luke Humphries tonight. Semi-final at the World Grand Prix. He's had a couple of decent runs on the telly this year. He could have been one that could have played himself in the contention. I don't think that's going to happen, even though he lost an absolute epic tonight. But
I think when we've lost the likes of Michael Smith, Gerwin Price and Peter Wright early, and Nathan Aspinall early within this World Championship as well, the fact that there's then so many more different combinations of players that are in that conversation that could then get the call up. Look, if you go make a World Championship final, it's going to be incredibly difficult to leave you out, even if it's the only thing you've done all year, which means that I've got Rob Cross in a 7, you've got a 6, but Cross there as well. If we see a Brendan Dolan, Scott Williams World Championship final, you have to realistically put both of them in. The world champion has to be there.
Yeah.
Right, despite the amount of comments we've heard in the past saying if it's Andrew Gilding, we still won't pick him, or whoever else that doesn't fit the mould. You're not going into your biggest flagship event for 17 weeks without your world champion.
No, it's absolutely not.
not.
And again, finalists is probably there as well. So
probably, but not 100%.
But who at the expense of, though?
I think someone like Brendan Dolan would still be a consideration.
Yeah,
I think Dobie's not in at the moment, which also leaves him vulnerable, by the way, because in that side of the draw, he plays Rob Cross next to Henry. You said he's maybe, I've got him as a 7. If he loses to that, and then you've got a Cross Littler shootout, you're pretty much guaranteeing one of them in. If the other side of that is not Van Gerwen or Humphries, suddenly Dobie's gone from the equation.
Yeah, exactly. Without doing anything wrong, really.
Yeah.
He's all of a sudden out
Without
there.
doing any, he could lose a quarterfinal in an absolute belting match with Rob Cross. Luke Littler comes through it, and Scott Williams and Dave Chisnall both pull off upsets. And suddenly, Chris Dobie is eliminated from Premier League contention on the basis that you've got 4 players in there and fighting for 2 spots. And chances are the 2 finalists are going to get those.
And look at this, right? And Luke Littler's going to be an absolute one-off wild card thing, which I don't think we'll ever talk about again. How far in the World Championship do they go and they think, right, he's going to give us headlines for days, no matter what he does in the Premier League? At what point do they decide, actually, this is a gamble worthwhile? When he gets to the semi-finals, he is eligible to play.
He's in the conversation, at least.
Well, he's eligible to play because he's got a 1-year tour card. Now,
that's not a rule anyway, because they considered Fallon a few years ago after her success. My issue with that is, as much as I've criticised the PDC, especially with Gary's interview the last couple of days about the way that they've handled media when this goes mad for the World Championships and safeguard and all that, the one tournament they have actually protected players from is the Premier League.
Yeah, because it's not ranked and you can do.
Ready last year. We've seen them hesitate to throw the likes of Damon in the past and other youngsters that have made a splash within the world of darts. If Luke makes the final, the calls and the pressure from the broadcasters and the sponsors to have him in are going to be incredible.
Yeah,
they're probably already on the phone now suggesting we want to look at his kid. But I also think there's a duty of care right now that if Luke's to lose to Brendan or in a semi-final, not a chance. It's not happening. You're going to ruin this kid's career and potentially his life in doing so. It's so much more media. It's so much more exposure. It's so many more eyes. And don't get me wrong, if there's that adage in football that if you're good enough, you're old enough, and he can handle it, and he's got a great team around him, and he's clearly ready for the limelight. But there is also a case of he's got 30 years of this.
Don't do too much too soon. Yeah,
don't go chasing 1 year of commercial gain when you've got a star for 30 years.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
And you look at like some of the documentaries, the David Beckham documentary, the Ronnie O'Sullivan, the film that was on Amazon Prime, and you know, yes, you know, when you can have sometimes too much too young, and sometimes you don't know the knock-on effect on something. And look, we obviously I've been lucky to get to meet Luke, and for someone his age, he's very level-headed, and I think he's very realistic about things. And I think the first things first is whatever call gets making. Look, there's going to be a lot of hype and a lot of excitement. Is that there's a young man there that's still developing as a human being, and that person's got to be looked after more than anything else. You know, that player welfare, I think, is something that is getting better, but needs to be something that's always at the forefront of every decision that's made. Look, don't get me wrong, right? If he gets the opportunity to play in the Premier League, he isn't going to turn it down. But what everybody involved in the situation, and this is where maybe you've got to have special circumstances where if it's going to be something that's considered, it's where the broadcaster got to speak to the governing body. I think the governing body have then got to have a chat with Luke's representatives, whether that be management stable, whether that be parents, whoever they feel like the most appropriate people would be, and have a sit-down conversation, outline their plans, and outline what they think this could lead, whether that be the pro side of it, the con side of it, and then at the end of that conversation, they have a chat about how this will beneficially work with Luke. You know, this is a very unique situation, and the one thing the PDC know is they've got Star on their hands for 30 years here. Protect him now, and make sure you've got him for 30 years. Otherwise, what you don't want is for this to come too soon. Look, if he wins the World Championship, he's in anyway. But regardless of what the situation is, whether he gets picked, whether he don't, you know, when these conversations are had when he's at this age, they need to be dedicatedly laid conversations, and the welfare of that player has to come first more than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, I've got 6 that I think are guaranteed, and then I think it's so obviously MBG, Smith, Humphries, Aspinall, Gezi, Peter Wright. I think are not even a debate, and then I think it's Cross and Dobie, who could potentially fall out of there if depending on what happens from here on in. But I think they're in as well. However, I want a fun Premier League. So I want, forget the best players in the world. It's the travelling circus. Let's make it fun. So let's have alternative. We're not picking any of the 8 that we think are in. Who are we having? So I'm having Petreczko, Cullen, Littler, Dirk, Bunting, Scott Williams, Josh Rock, and Gary Anderson. That would be a better Premier League. Tell me.
Where's Simon Adams?
That's just, yeah, but we could go in there as well. We could even go with a bit of the soldier as well if we wanted. But
Tell you what, you could do a half. I'm not trying to create ideas which you're probably going to end up hating me for, God. But you could create a World Seniors Premier League. You could get an 8-man travelling circus for the Seniors Premier League.
Absolutely, sign me up for that.
I'm busy enough, mate.
I'm just thinking of spending less time around you. That's all.
Well, I've had to send our bosses my availability for the next 6 weeks as well. And it's just, I could do this couple of days, and then I've got to go to seniors, and then I come back, and then I've got to go to seniors again. And I don't need more time on the road, thank you very much. Not in my 207, which, by the way, 1,400 quid for insurance. Have a word with yourself.
What, you could buy 12 of your car for that?
Exactly. I'm fuming. Anyway, right, that pretty much wraps up our conversation about Premier League. We are none the wiser as to which 8 players will be firmly in it, especially with at least 1, if not 2 slots.
That's a good shout in the chat there, by the way. That going back to Tommy there in the chat, which we did try to do a while ago, when we tried to put all the Smiths into a Premier League.
Sponsored by John Smiths.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's enough of them out there. Right, that is the end of tonight's show. A big thank you to both of you for joining me, to everybody who stayed here for this extended part of the chat. We're nearly an hour and 40 minutes. Can you answer my question? Isn't Luke getting paid for an interview, so he's choosing to do it? Not necessarily.
No. Maybe so, but I assume
you get
not.
paid for front page covers and spreads and exclusives. You don't get paid for, can we have a quick chat for 5-10 minutes, which is what the majority of them are. No.
And a lot of them would have been through the PDC, so there's obvious media obligations that players have got to go through and do. So yeah, probably maybe that if you get a splash or say, but by and large it'd be a case of usually it's just something to fulfill your media commitments and stuff.
I've just been sent a list from our social media manager from the Super Series. I'll tell you it when we finish the show, Henry, but it's made me chuckle. And on that note, that is the end of tonight's show. A big thank you to Paddy Power for all their support throughout the World Darts Championship. Just 3 days of action remains. Just 2 more Fallout bars remain for this tournament before we find out who will lift the Sid Woodell Trophy on Wednesday. I hope you all have a magnificent time celebrating the new year in tomorrow or tonight.
Today.
Yeah, a couple of hours.
You for joining us.
Yeah, I'm going to say, by the time we're done, it will be the new year, I think.
If you're in Australia, hello, Sydney.
There's a few somewhere. They'll be asleep by now. Yes, a big thank you to everybody for watching us throughout the evening. We've been Online Darts. This has been the Fallout Bar, and we will see you all in 2024. Bye.